Welcome to the artclass.com. Today we are going to interview Mr. Frank Victoria, awesome artist, concept artist for Weta Workshop, and also a professor at the university in London. So here is Frank.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, okay,
Hi, guys.
so I think there might be some people already watching. There are like one of you. There's one of them is one of your students, Shifty Source or something, but I don't know his real name. But
Go back,
yeah.
back to work, student.
All right. So the first question, how and why did you start to want to become a concept artist? What made you want to go into this profession?
Well, it's funny because I want to tell the story, and I actually didn't want to be a concept artist. I just wanted to be an artist, you know. And then in the 80s, a friend of mine brought me the Art of Star Wars, which had the beautiful paintings by Ralph McQuarrie and all these people in there. They were real, you know, gouache paintings. This was before the internet. And I was fascinated by that because I thought, wow, this is so cool. This guy has designed the movie as the movie looks, you know, before the movie. So I had no idea about that. And I thought, wow, that would be so cool to do that one day. You know, but I didn't know it was called concept art. I didn't speak English. I was in France. I had no idea how to go there. And, you know, so I tried to make movies, you know, using Super 8 cameras and all that stuff. And that failed miserably because it was too expensive. And I thought, you know what, plan B, I'm going to just start drawing like mad because I love drawing. And so I decided to just do the next best thing, which is comic. In France, we have tons of comic books. And so I read, you know, I started to do as much comic book as possible in illustration. Funny enough, after I finished my, so I published several. This is stuff I did.
Awesome.
First one was published in 2000.
Is it in French?
It's all in French, yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah, Cube Le Pic.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And this was all drawn with acrylic paint on paper.
Wow.
It took me a very long time because I wrote the whole story, and I thought I was going to do it for kids because you know, it would be maybe it would be easier.
So how long ago was this?
This one was 2000. This one was 2002. Sorry.
Oh, super cool.
So before that, I was doing a lot of, you know, like everybody else, doing advertising and other bits of comics here and there and stuff like that. So, and when I did this one, the second one, I had moved to New Zealand. You know, New Zealand, where they were making The Lord of the Rings. My wife was an animator. She used to work in Jim Henson's in London, and she was a fan of the books. So we moved to New Zealand for her to work on that. And I met the people from Weta there, and I started to learn English as well. And then they said, do you want to work there for a while? And they thought a few weeks. And they had another thing, that a TV series called Jane and the Dragon. And I said, that would be so cool. And I thought a few weeks, they thought a few weeks, and a few weeks turned into 9.5 years.
Wow.
And then
holy cow.
Sorry?
That's a long time, from a few weeks to like 9.5 years. That's.
Yeah, I know. It's just the way it is. I just work my crazy. You know, I work all day long and every weekend. I've always done that anyway. So I thought, yeah, this is so cool because the next project was Tintin. I worked on Tintin.
Oh, awesome.
Which was great because then we had to design ideas for the movie. I've never done that. My first design. By the way, I didn't know how to use Photoshop either. You know, I just learned. I just learned it there and asked the guys, "What's a file? How do you paint? What's this? What's that?" You know, I just and on you go.
Yeah, now you're like cranking them out every day in like 20 minutes. You're like, done with one concept. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're like that too. You're pretty fast.
I'm just like, when I saw your art on the speed paint, I was like, oh my god, this is so good. Yes, and then become your big fan ever since. Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny because in the film industry, the speed paint, to me, I've never seen it. It doesn't exist. I mean, you might do a speed paint to show someone above you to say, well, I'm going to do a painting like that. But I've never seen it used towards a director, because the directors, they don't like it. They go, I don't know what's going on. You know, they need
you need more detail
with the gun that he asked for. You know, in this, so they need this hyper real rendering of everything.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you're doing the opposite to the speed paint. You're doing. I was designing weapons and swords and stuff. And I was doing it really slowly, carefully, even fast, of course, but really detailed, so you know what's going on there. So the opposite to the speed paint, if you will.
I know. Pretty awesome. Wow. That's like a long story. 9 years. So you have to like live there the whole time?
Yeah,
New Zealand?
I was in New Zealand for 12 years in total, because I was doing my comic books in the beginning, and then my wife was working on the Lord of the Rings, and then left in 2012, so from 2000 to 2012.
Yeah.
So that's 12 years. Then I came back to Europe and worked on Thor, Thor 2, Dark World, the second Thor movie, just designing more stuff for the weapons and stuff for the movie. Awesome. And then I got offered this job at university, so I've been there for 3 years now, and it's kind of cool because it allows me to do these speed paints, which I never had the time before. I was busy,
Yeah, I know. And you get a lot of like people get exposure to your artwork, like me and stuff. And I was on Facebook. I was like, oh, who is this guy? He's so good. Yeah. And then
I knew your artwork. You're the guy from I Drew. I show some of my students stuff, and I had no idea it was you because I saw your artwork on speed paint. This guy's. Well, I had no idea it was the same guy.
Thanks. And another question here. What is the like aha moment that you kind of so you've been doing artists before you get a job, like way before. So what is your aha moment that like, hey, I could actually do this for a living, and how did you go about it?
The aha moments. Well, like I say, because it was so unexpected and sort of I don't know, a weird career, if you will. It wasn't planned properly. It just happened. At some point, I found myself on the Hobbit and thinking I'm designing a weapon, and then Peter Jackson says, yeah, I want that for Thorin. Then they built it, they made it, they brought it to my desk, Thorin's swords and Thorin's axe, the dwarf sword that he has in the movie, the dwarf axe. And they brought it to my desk, like, you know, some guy said, oh, how can I build that and all that? And this was the aha moment. I thought, Jesus, this is for real. Most of the time you're in a room, you're just drawing like crazy and nothing happened.
Taking your own world.
I'm sorry?
You kind of like in your own world doing your thing, and then...
You don't think about that you've achieved something, you know, you're just there, just constantly working and trying to get somewhere, and then it hits you. Suddenly you go, oh, this is actually, and then you see the movie and it's like, this is my weapon. This guy is killing an orc, a goblin with my weapon. This is, so that was a long time, right? 10 years old.
That's insane, and you have to go back for the Hobbits again. Do you go back for the Hobbits, or do you stay in London and work from there remotely?
I left in 2012, so most of the design was done. There still was design going on after that, but it was less and less. And there was other movies I worked on, obviously. A lot of movies that never got made, you know, so you worked on, including for big directors, and the movie get canned like six weeks before being filmed or whatever, so, and you can never show the artwork. So there was a lot of movies that I worked on, so that never got made. And some movies, so they come back later. You worked on a movie, it disappears, and it comes back, stuff like that. I would go back maybe one day, but not now. I'm quite happy doing it. It's a nice change, and I can do...
12 years is a long time. So now I'm going to show some of your artwork over here. Let's see. Where's Frank? There we go. So what if you are a young artist that just starting out right now, what would you do to get get started and all that?
So I give my students my 3 rules. I fix myself 3 rules. The 3 rules are very easy. The number 1 is work super hard. That is, work every day, 10 hours a day at your job, then go home, do some more. Work until you get to the right level. So hard work is an easy rule to understand. The second rule is cultivate yourself. That is, have a lot of cultural knowledge. So by that I mean read books, watch movies, look at the cars, look at trains, airplanes, everything you can think of. You just fill your brain all the time with things, and even from hard science or something that's happening on Mars, or what happened 10,000 years ago, and why is the street named this way, and to pop culture, even like who's the drummer of that band or anything. The more in your mind, the better as an artist you will be, because you will have this like some earth growing stuff in, you know what I mean? So these are the two rules, and the third one is actually the hardest for most people. But it is really take criticism well and be a gentleman. And it's because I've been in things, and I've been in places where I've seen people cry and slam the door and disagree. I've never done that. I've been told off many times.
Yeah.
Never cry, never made a scene. I've always taken it to myself and just decided to keep working until I get better. So this third rule is a hard one for young person to understand, because it's a challenge. People think, oh, they're attacking me, but they're not. They're attacking this piece of artwork. So yeah.
Yep, that's true. And if nobody tell you, like, that's how you grow and how you get better. Actually. Yeah. Those are pretty good rules. So yeah, awesome.
It's simple. To me, it was simple. It's just people have other rules. Obviously, they can add their own ones. But I think if you stick to simple rules like that. Easy, work hard, cultivate yourself, and be nice. Be a gentleman, no matter what, Even when people say, "Oh, thanks for working on this thing," I've had that many times in New Zealand. They say, "Well, nice work. There's nothing for you now." Get the letter that says, "Go home." Well, actually, not go home, because they liked me so much in New Zealand at Weta that I had a little desk and I could work on my own stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Which was great. So I was always there every day, no matter what. Yeah.
Okay, so there are some people here. There's Barbara from South Africa, Dominic, Austria, and then Gary is from Great Britain. So they come join us just now. Yeah.
Hello.
And here is Frank Victoria. So
hi guys.
Yeah. Do you guys have any question to ask Frank?
Yeah, I do, but go on, Gary.
Go ahead, Dominic.
Oh, thank you, Dominic. Thank you. Yeah, I just wondered. Nice to meet you, Frank. I wondered if you had do you have a strongest genre that you're happiest to draw? And like on the same sort of note, is there anything that scares you? Like if someone says, can you draw mech, or we want some mech stuff? Is there anything that scares you? And also, which is your favorite to do?
Yeah, it's funny because mech is a thing I've never really drawn. And when I was at Weta, there were so many sort of medieval kind of movies that I kind of became an expert in sort of high fantasy stuff. I've done a few sci-fi robots here and there, but it wasn't my forte, if you will. It wouldn't scare me because I would think, okay, I'm going to study hard and get good at whatever the challenge, I'll take it. So not really scared, but I'm not an expert in robot design. Spaceship I can do, but robot less so. But I think it's just a question of practice, and this is one of my plans to do that. But when I paint, the thing that I like to do most of the time these days is sort of epic stuff. I'm interested in movements more than actual design, if you will. So I come from concept art background, so I know now what is good design. But I'm less obsessed by the actual detail of the buckles and all the little pockets, and more into the action and the being in the scene, the life happening in front of your eyes, and that entails that you put less to your images. That's why I've been doing so much speed paint, and I'm quite happy. But on the side, I work on other things where I put a lot more details. I can't show it because it's confidential. But when I'm asked to, I can do details. So it's just you shift your gear, and when you go to your natural tendencies, my natural thing is to go action and emotion. I try to get to this emotional image as quickly as I can.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, Frank, how do you go about studying video games or movies in general?
Looking at movies, you mean?
Yeah, and how do you study them? How do you study video games, and how do you study movies in general? Do you just do still paintings, or how do you go about it?
Me studying these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just have like a photographic memory. I just watch things and I remember. My wife said, "What did you see?" I said, "Oh, I looked at the guy in the background and the helmet. It was awesome." Something like that. Okay. But it's because I'm used to looking rather than just watching. So if I walk in the street, I will look at every detail of the archways and the doors, and it's try to remember that. But there are people that are better than me. I mean, if you think of a guy like Kim Jong-gi, he can recreate the world like that so well. Ooh, is it frozen?
Oops. Oh, yeah, he's frozen. Yeah, but that's okay.
No worries.
Yeah, these are awesome, and yeah, you do a lot of like acrylic traditional works too, right?
Yeah, because acrylic, the advantage of acrylic is it dries very quickly,
yeah.
and it's very intense color. It's very strong, and it stays there. Like the gouache is a problem; it gets into powder, but acrylic stays there. It's the paint that you use on the wall, so that's why I do that a lot. And ink, I've got these ink pens. I don't have them there, but I just put that on there.
Oh, these are awesome, and all this paint over here, and you're. I want to see your desk.
It's a mess.
Always, yeah. And Barbara, do you have any question?
Hi, Barbara.
Yes. You might have said something about it in the beginning, but I might have missed it. I just wanted to know about how it was working with the Weta team on the Hobbit movies.
Oh, how I get along with those guys? So I didn't get that. It was a bit.
Well, just like especially. Well, what was it like to work with John Howe and Alan Lee?
Oh, they're awesome. Yeah, I'm good friend with. I went to see Alan last summer. He lived in England, in Shackford, and I'm good friend with him because we signed one of his book, the Fairy book, and I used to be a fan of his. John Howe, interestingly, used to study in the same art school that I went to in France, in Strasbourg, but he was there about 10 years before me. Now these two guys, they were specialists of the Hobbit. That's why they were brought down not by Weta, but actually by the director into another little company. So they worked with us for a little while, but then they were into another studio. But I always got along very well with them. Also, Mac Mignola came there for a while. The Hellboy guy, and I got along with all these guys. From my experience, the more people are talented, the nicer they are. I've never seen people who are really talented being I mean, it's possible, I guess, being really mean or anything.
Yeah, usually. Yep. So, this is not. Oh, go ahead. Anything more question, Barbara?
Yes,
okay,
actually, I do have another one.
Yeah.
No.
Hello.
I just wanted to ask. How many paintings do you have to be able to produce in a day in order to be employable as a concept artist?
Well, yeah, this is the hard one. What happens is when you're in production, obviously, time is money. You watch I don't know, things with tutorials like that. It will tell you the quicker the better. But also quality is what counts. So when you're beginning, be more obsessed by making something beautiful rather than quickness. Quickness will come after a while, but you just make sure it looks interesting and good beforehand, and then they will. If you come in a meeting and you haven't done anything, okay, the next meeting you come in with this awesome piece, they'll think, wow, this is great. And they'll forget about the meeting before, they didn't do a thing. If you come in with a bad piece, they'll think, oh, well, this is a waste of time. And it's like, oh, this guy can't do it. I've done all the so I know.
Okay.
So towards the end on the Hobbit, for example, we had to design weapons in like a day. You know, it's like we need a weapon for an orc or something. You know, it needs to be that big, blah blah blah. So you just start and you paint in one day, or costume design or something like that. So, well, sure, it's not super detailed, but it's good enough that it can be pushed to the next level and built, you know, by the craftsmen. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Works.
All right. So, oops, I was gonna stop by one of these things. This is probably one of my favorite of yours. So, what was your thought process when you were making this one? Like, what were you thinking, and what inspired you to make this one?
This is I'm working on a comic book at the moment, which has this kind of character. Sorry.
Are you really okay? Now I'm gonna have to watch out when it's coming out.
Yeah, I'll make it for free at first because I want it to be. Well, I want to just experiment. I have several. My first thing was comic book. You know, the stuff I used to make.
Yeah,
I want to
yeah.
go to the next level, which is a grown-up comic book. This was for kids.
Yeah. Can you show us that one again? Is it all in French? Do you have it in English also, or just in French?
No, it was just in French. This was the first one, and this is the second one. So back then, I wrote the story. I created everything, the world, the character, all that stuff.
Yeah, that looked fantastic.
But so now I just I have a grown-up version of that, if you will. So I'm working on that. It's gonna come out soon. I mean, I'm gonna just do a few pages and see if people like it or not.
Mhm. Can
So
you
this-
like?
Sorry.
Oh, can
Yeah.
you tell us like a short story, like what is it about, and is
It's
she
about
one of
this
the?
lady and she comes from the stars in a medieval world, you know, swords and
Awesome.
totally unrealistic. It's a bit like, you know, the archetype. I like to work on archetypes, so I always paint. I sort of refer to the classical archetypal things, you know. So this is the archetype of the good girl, as they call that. If you look on Wikipedia, they'll tell you the good girl is like Red Sonja, and these characters that are just beautiful and also kick-ass, you know, perfect kind of adventure, you know, unrealistic kind of thing. Yeah. So I'm playing with that because I enjoy this sort of I don't know, pop culture, if you will. Yeah. And for these, the most important thing to me is the composition. So every image has to tell a story and take your eye in the right direction, you know, move you to where I want you to go. I could push them a bit further, but I think too much detail would kill them.
Yeah, this is perfect because so when I look at your painting, most of them it has a lot of like action, and it's really like raw and really good. So I for a long time I thought you were like an animator before, because most of these are like it has a lot of movement and they kind of flow together really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, it's really not a revenge, but like the opposite to what I was doing. I mean, honestly, we used to paint every single detail of.
I see.
It was the opposite. I mean, even in these books, when I look at them, they painted by hand, but absolutely everything was super detailed. You know, it's just like it was. And so this didn't have movements, but it just had a lot of I don't know, endless detail. But that doesn't make a good image, in my opinion. I've learned that. I made all the mistakes.
Yeah.
Cool. So, do you guys have other questions?
I have another question.
Yeah, I just realized I muted myself. Go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
I was just wondering, do you ever experience something like writer's block with painting, where you get stuck on one piece and you just can't seem to move past it?
Yeah, that's a good question. The thing that I would say is it's really hard, but you just have to move on and just go, the hell with this. I'm going to move to something else because I mean, I know people who get obstinate with one image. I found that one of the secrets is to work on 2 or 3 things at the same time. So I've discovered that when I was at Weta, there was several guys there who were working on 3 pieces at the same time. If you watch Feng's tutorials, he always does that. He has like several, and then he chooses one and pushes it, and so that you don't get bogged down, because it's terrible when you get you kind of, I don't know, you have a problem in an image, the character doesn't look right, and you try and fix it, and this doesn't work, and this doesn't work, and you go, oh my goodness, and then that's sort of. However, I would say that the ones that you struggle, the images that you do that are the most struggle, is probably where you learn. That's where you learn, not when you do something that is easy. It's when you're struggling. Then the next image that you will do normally should be a bit easier, or in 10 images later you'll feel, oh, that suddenly is easier. Yeah, that's where you're, I don't know, building some muscles, if you will.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Yeah. I totally agree on that.
Yeah.
The harder it is, the better for you.
I've failed many times. A lot of images I've done, I abandoned them, or I just came back a year later and think, oh my goodness, this is still, I can't fix it, and you know. But it's just my secret now is to just do 1 million images. I could do 1 a day, and then work on a comic, and then do sketches. Like I was telling Xia before we were on air, that I have a sketchbook in the car, a sketchbook in my office at the university. I have sketchbooks on me all the time. If I go to a cafe, I start drawing. I do tons of little sketches, you know, just hand sketches or paintings or anything. You know, it's just I'm constantly thinking about images and drawing and perspective and all these kind of things. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's
I think I do about like 10 to 20 a day, from what I've seen.
Yeah,
Other stuff.
I don't think this is that good. You know, I just want to get to the next level.
Yeah, this is so awesome. Yeah, and you can follow Frank on Facebook. I have a link down below from this video. So there's a link to his blog, a link to his YouTube, and link to his YouTube. I think you just upload a video today, right? So I just checked.
I managed to find a program and do one painting at work while nobody was interrupting me, which is there's always a student telling me this and that, and I had to stop painting and run.
They were like, "Hi, Frank, help."
Yeah, exactly. They panic a lot.
So, all right, Gary, Dominic, do you have any question to ask? I'm gonna try to get the question from the viewer here.
Yeah, I've got one more question. When you was at Weta, I mean, it's like a candy shop, isn't it? Was you ever tempted to get involved? It all looks very hands-on. Everyone gets involved with everything. Did you ever get a chance to make any models, or was it something you ever got interested in, and would you be tempted by that at all?
Yeah, it's funny because I like drawing and painting. That's my thing. But sometimes there's no design, and Richard Taylor, our boss, said to me, well, if you want, you can go down at the workshop downstairs and just work on something, which was nice of him, because then I got money while there was no design. I could still work. I ended up working on making armors for Narnia, the movie Narnia, and I just cut myself very badly, and that's another story. It's very clumsy, and then all these tools. But I wasn't the only one. It's quite dangerous. You have to cut with a sharp knife all these armors. If you look at the Centaur helmets in the movie Narnia, the first one, I worked on those. I didn't design them, but I just had to build them. You know, so making the plastic. There was a guy who was in charge of the painting, all that. So it was just all hands on deck, if you will. The miniature, those guys, I've never worked with them, but it was kind of interesting to see how it works. I guess when you're in production, is whatever you're fastest at that they will employ you. You know, you won't have. There's no time to waste for someone who doesn't know how to use something. You know, you have to be quickly productive, if you will. So you can't just spend a day learning how to use materials that are there. You have to be hands-on. So the armor was quite easy to do. They told me, you do this, you do that. You cut that this way, you polish it that way, and that was it. In 1 hour, you can do it. And then I did buckles and all these kind of things. But the actual craftsmanship of making miniature and all that, that's all these skills I really respect. Is they had a sword maker as well, a guy who made real swords. He would make the first one in metal. He had a forge. A guy who makes real swords, for the movies. But obviously, these were not the ones that were used in the filming because they're too heavy and dangerous. So they have copies of that made of plastic, but you wouldn't tell the difference. It's so well painted and everything. You have to touch it, and even sometimes while touching it, you think, is that the metal one? Is that the metal one? So these guys are experts, and I've learned a lot from them, and then I've learned what was possible, which in turn fed back into my own designs. Once you've done it, you think, oh, I can do something like this, but even better, etc. So it was all useful, if you will. But I don't think I was the most the best use of me in the workshop, if you will. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Frank. Dominique, Barbara, any more questions?
Yeah, sure. Just before I was cut off, I just wanted to thank you for the previous answer. I just couldn't say thank you before. What is the difference for you between working for video games and working for movies? Because you had one painting of sci-fi armor where you specifically said that you wanted it to have a movie feeling instead of a video game feeling, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The movie, it's very subtle, but obviously now some movies like the Warcraft movie, they imitate the look of the game. But for example, The Hobbit, it's a high fantasy movie, but it is supposed to be the real world, if you will. So you go as crazy as you can. Just stop a tiny bit below the too crazy. It's a very fine balance, And in the video game, what you want is not be afraid and go, way crazier, because the video game has to be, I don't know, very exaggerated, a crazy world, if you will. In a movie, it works a bit less because everything has to have, the movies I've worked on. And they have to have a kind of, it's possible, even though all those weapons, when you actually wear them and carry them, they're too heavy, they wouldn't work in the real world, but they look plausible, whereas if you had a video game, you can push it further. Now, I'm saying that, and then there are video games out there that are a really hyper-realistic kind of feel. That's different. So in general, I'd say, from the previous video games, they had to be rated, whereas the movie, he exaggerates too, but he just stopped one step below. From the crazy to the ridiculous. You go almost to the ridiculous, but you stop one step below. It's a fine balance.
Thank you, Frank. And just the last question, is there anything you would have done differently if you would have to work or start working from the beginning now?
I would try and learn. I would try and learn some 3D software if I could, like Maya or something like that, and just to build I don't know, robot or even Zbrush, just to build creature. I've seen people building creatures like in Zbrush and then putting them into Photoshop, painting over, and the creature looks hyper real. If you can do that super fast, that really impresses the director, because you have a winner that he goes, this is my creature, I want this guy in my movie. If you do a painting, it takes longer.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A lot of concept artists using Zbrush to be part of the tool nowadays too. So and they are pretty fast, these kids these days. So there are a few questions from the viewer, Frank. Here's Beto Lima. He said, "Hi Frank, Roberto Lima here. I really love your works, man. There is a touch of Frazetta style on your painting, especially the poses, the charm of the female characters. Love it. I got a few questions. Number one, many of your paintings I see recently on Daily Spit Paint. They are amazing as they are unfinished. Do you take time to make detail after the speed paint is done?
Hey, no, it's sometimes I did a few, I finished a few like that here and there, but I haven't for a little while now. But yeah, I always think, oh, this one I need to go back here and polish it, you know. But then something else happens and I don't have the time. But maybe I will. Maybe I will.
Or he can get your comic book that you published earlier. Those are pretty detailed, right? And then the upcoming one, that one's gonna be awesome too. I can't wait. The girl and the horses. That's my favorite ones. I mean, there are many of your painting that are my favorite because I'm a big fan, but I can't wait for the comics. And the second question, working in the industry requires you to be specialized in one skill or be multiple skill in many tools and software around, like painting software, textures, 3D modeling and stuff. Do you have any tips about this?
I would say in the modern day, like when I started, it was okay to be just good at one thing. But I think now people need to be good at many things. Obviously, you need to have one area that you're really at the top of the game. So let's say you can do environments, paintings really well, or you can design robots and build them in Maya or something. You have one area that you are ace, you know, because what they look for production is someone can do something that they need right now and they don't have the time to waste for someone to learn this new thing. So if you just do medieval fantasy like me, you end up doing medieval fantasy because people don't think you can do sci-fi, you know, something like that. So be an expert in one area, but by all means push everything in every different field, if you will. I think it's important to know in the modern days to know a bit of Zbrush, a bit of Maya, a bit of even animation if you can, and then Photoshop, and then Painter, or anything. You know, just try to have all the weapons at your disposal, if you will. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you, Frank. Any more questions from you guys before we have to let Frank go because so he can go do his stuff?
None from me, Ian. No, thank you, Frank. That's it. Right. Thank you.
Yes.
Just maybe because. Go on, Barbara. Go on.
The one that Dominic asked earlier about games and movies. I was just wondering, do you have a preference?
Well, I prefer movies to me just because I like storytelling. But I appreciate game design a lot. You know, I really like video games as a career. Somehow, if I could, I would have loved to work in the game industry at some point. I did a tiny bit of work on a game for Weta for the Hobbit because the people from Warner, they wanted the same look in the game, so we designed stuff for the game, for using the same ethos, if you will. So I've dwelled into it a tiny bit, but I don't think you should. I don't know. My personal preference is storytelling, but if tomorrow someone says, "Do you want to work on a game?" Like right now, I'm working on a game. Actually, I'm working on a game for an American guy, and so since I will never say no. If it's cool, I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a difference in a concept art team, game or a movie, or is it very similar?
In a concept art team, you mean working on games or on? No, you find that people are similar.
Yeah, I mean. Okay.
Oh, I think you're cutting off a little.
Sorry, couldn't hear that.
I found your spaceship. That's a sci-fi right there. That's a treasure.
Yeah, like I said, I do a bunch of spaceship here and there. It's just something I want to do more, maybe at some point.
They are awesome. All right, are you saying something, Barbara, or no more?
Yeah, the question.
No, never mind. Don't worry.
Okay.
All right, guys.
So there are connection
one-
issues.
Oh, they have connection issues. Dominic, you have anything?
Yeah, sure. Because Frank, you were talking about being able to know how to work in Maya and in Zbrush. Do you think it's important to just focus on one thing at first, or do you think it's good to somehow work at all those different softwares at once?
I think if I was younger, or I mean, maybe I promised myself that I would learn some of it, but I would try and work, say, on ZBrush, sorry, for like a month, till you nail the interface and you become good, But then shift, don't get bogged down. If something doesn't work, just go and do a bit of painting, do a bit of. That's why I'm doing hand painting, digital painting, hand sketches. And if I could, I would do a sculpture in ZBrush or something, and then move on. So you always, it's a bit like, I don't know, going to different restaurants, You don't want to eat burgers every day. Sometimes you want a bit of Asian food, sometimes you want Indian. You just want to vary your thing so you have a better taste, you better, you become, it's more interesting, rather than, but at the same time, when you think you're going to nail something, then by all means stay with it till you become good. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Frank. So here's Frank Victoria, and thank you very much for coming to join us today. And if people want to find you, what's the best place to find your artwork and your maybe go study in your school or something?
I'm on. I've got my blog, so that you just showed my blog. I've got a website called, I can't remember the name of the website. I'm sorry, I don't know it by heart. It's Frank.
Right.
I got images here and there.
I'll post the link down below on the video so they can go to your follow you on Facebook and then go to your blog and go to your YouTube channel. All right. Thank you very much, Frank, and really nice to meet you. I'm a super big fan over here, and I'm looking at everywhere here. So I should be looking at it. Thank you very much, Frank, for joining us, and you have the great rest of the day.
Cheers.
Thank you, Frank.
All right.